Yeah, so what I wanted to build with you here today, I want to discuss um, about the semis. So I know earlier you were just bringing up about the religiosity, and you could just touch on that. I think that was a good point.
Oh, with the guy, the author said about the philosophy.
Yeah.
He states that the Europeans, they didn't understand the religion because they thought it was superstitious and deceit, and that they believed that there wasn't enough room for other philosophies, besides theirs, which makes sense, because when they came to the Caribbean, everything to them was just Christian. They didn't understand the religiosity of the natives. They actually thought it was just devil worship, or heretics. So, and because they were they worship more than one god, of course they're gonna think that it was a heretic. And no, it's to them it's it's like a pagan or devil worship to them. And everything was Christianization. Then they had, in order to convert you, they had to kill you. You know what I mean? If you wanted to be a Christian, they would kill you or hang you. Which was common. If you look at the scientist Galileo, not to switch the subject, but remember when he discovered the moon with the whole telescope thing, and they thought, there's other planets out there. He was in jail. He died in jail. They thought it was a heretic. They said no, because that was just how religion was back then. But that's common. It's still common to this day. It's sad, but it's the truth. What Christianity have done, but a lot of people don't know, to our ancestors.
Right. I think this is an important thing that I feel like we should open the floor on. It's regarding the hierarchy of our ancestors, and with these artifacts that relate to the semis. It represents, in a sense, on an unknown exploration of this area regarding the semis. In regards to that, in my opinion, the artwork relating to the artifacts, represents the religious as well as the philosophical worldview of our ancestors. When relating to the stone collars, the three-pointed semis, the wooden or stone figures representing the medicine men, the curanderos, or the bejiques, So when we're looking into this, we're also looking into how they saw, how they viewed their world. I believe, in my opinion, that the art is an expression of the local geography in the area.
What's interesting, I think you bring that when the natives actually saw the Christians bringing saints, to them was very similar as them worshiping the same thing of the semis.
Right.
So it was very convenient for them to adapt to a Christianity because they actually thought that the saints were very similar to semis.
Right.
So it makes sense that to this day in the Caribbean, like you go to PR and DR, and they got like Virgin Mary and Santa Maria, and Jesus, and they worship them like idols, like semis, because they had to adapt to a religion that they were forced into,
Or to say, in a sense, that they had to adapt to a different philosophy.
Exactly. Yes.
That was in opposition to theirs at the time of the coming of the conquest.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And what is interesting too is that I think I was explaining before. This is just according to Jesse Walter Fuchs, that the word semi could be to corrupt the word of wami, which means animal. And when Columbus came to the Caribbean, the natives would call him wami keni, and what it means is wami means ruler, and I think kemi means animal, but wami means ruler. And what they were saying is that he was the ruler of the earth, water, and sky. When he first came into the island, he was in a boat. They actually thought this guy was a god, because they never seen people with clothes on and coming water and a big bow and weapons and stuff they never seen. It was very eccentric to them, So, and of course they feel what people feel what they don't understand, So So the word semi, it could mean maybe and if you look at the semis, some of them actually they look like animals, you know. So it could be a corrupted word for wami, which for gemi, which is animal, or wami, ruler, you know. So for example, in certain South American dialects, they say for the tobacco, they call it shemi because of the healing factor of the tobacco, you know. So of course they had to create or use these semis to as if a trend to or the healing, you know, or something that they just needed something to represent, you know. It's not as different than when you have a good luck charm and you worship that charm and you think it's good luck to you. Maybe it was something good luck to them. It was like a good luck charm to them, you know. But yeah, the semis was very important to them. They had to worship these idols. You know?
I think that this is a real important thing that I want to get to. It's regarding the use of the semis. Now, when it comes to these sacred objects of our ancestors, you know, there's a big cloud of mystery surrounding these sacred objects because, you know, we're not really sure in what, you know, these sacred objects were used for. Now, a backdrop for this I want to use is what occurred during the conquest, which was, I wouldn't say fall or the decimation, but a disruption in the hierarchy of our ancestors. So, for example, Fuchs, he says in the Aborigines of Puerto Rico that our ancestors had a well-developed priesthood. So, when you hear that and you reflect upon the sacredness that is behind these objects, you can see a reminiscence of the profound knowledge of the sacred hierarchy of our ancestors when we look into these objects. So when we see this, you know, a large portion of it is in a sense missing because there were many aspects that the Spanish did not document.
Right.
You know, or possibly that they did not have an interest in them, you know, because it was not relevant in
their eyes. In
their eyes at the moment.
Yeah. They were just going by what they very look. They were just only documenting whatever looks similar to them and their perspective. Right. You know, it's like I was reading one of Panay's account, and he says that, and this is common amongst other Native Americans too from South America, when they state that the trees speak to them, you know. And the trees, when they were doing these sacred ceremonies, and they use things to make them see things, like in a trance, you know, like they do in South America when they use the ayahuasca. So they go into a trance, and these plants would speak to them, and the trees would speak to them, and the tree would tell them how they want to be made or transformed. And that's why when you see semis, you see them looking like other animals, you know, because apparently the trees told them this is how they want to look like, you know. So nature was very significant to them, you know. They were really within nature. You know?
What is interesting when you bring that up, right, when we look into the works by Stevens Arroyo, the Cabo Hagua, and even more recently by Jose R. Oliver and Caciques and Semi-Idols, you know, we see that when they discuss about that, you know, with regarding the hierarchy of our ancestors and how did they live. So when we see, like, for example, with the stone collars.
Oh yeah, that's
you know,
another one, yeah.
Now that's an interesting area.
That's a very, very interesting
because
area.
You know, like what I would say, you know, given my opinion, is that, you know, a lot of things that we put out, you know, is from our own observations. And when it comes to this area, it's a little challenging because of what the Spanish did, you know, like what I can say, what is definitely that they were very good at destroying culture.
Oh,
so
of course, because the Spaniards didn't have history in their country.
Right.
So they had to conquer other people's culture.
Right. So when it comes to attempting to interpret something such as the semi is a challenge when we look it into the respect in what the Spaniards did, or where I would say generalize what the foreign party has done to those that were indigenous to the land.
So I agree. It's very interesting that that speaking about the religion aspect, a lot of people don't know that the first Christian guy was what was his name? Mateo.
Right.
His first name Giovanni Mateo.
Right.
And he was, for example, he was the first guy to convert to Christianity. He was very good friends with Roman Pane.
Right.
Some people state that he helped Pane to as an interpreter to the Tainos, because apparently Pane only spoke Macori.
Right.
But he died a very horrible death, and it doesn't say why he died, but when he did die, there were witnesses that stated that he was actually saying "Adios na boriacha," which means, "My God, I am a servant."
Right.
You know what I mean? Because na boria means servant, but he actually mixed it up with "adios," which is Spanish. You know? So it was the Indians. They had to convert because they was only trying to protect. Some of them had to protect their family. You know what I mean? Because if not, they would have had, some of their families would have been dead if they wanted to convert to Christianity or anything like that. But it's very interesting that if you look at these semis, not to change the subject, but you look at these semis and you see the designation of them. Like they got circles, they got animals, some got the belly button. We were speaking about that before. And what's interesting about them, they do seem like they represent the belly button because the Opiel, the god Opiel, and the Opiel didn't have a belly button, meaning they didn't have life. They were dead. So the belly button is a representation of the circle of life. So maybe that's how the belt is, the collar. Maybe the collar is a representation of the circle of life, like the belly button is. It's just a little thought, I'm just putting it out there.
It can be considered as a universal symbol.
Yeah, maybe a women's womb or something.
In their worldview.
Yeah, in their worldview.
Right.
But it's a very controversial topic because they don't know. It's still hard because the belt. I mean, the collar is heavy. It's like 80 pounds.
Right.
Some people think they use it for pate. No way, that's too heavy.
Like what I would say, like for example, in many internal societies, there are many aspects that are immutable. Which only an initiate will understand. So I think the problem in differentiating this, the challenges comes because, it's in regards, the priesthood of our ancestors was decimated. By conquest. So when trying to interpret it, these are the challenges we face because, that system was disrupted terribly. Now, one thing you brought up was between when we were discussing and using as an example, as another backdrop, the cacique system and encomienda. So I think that was a good point.
And with the belt. A lot of archaeologists think that it could be the ceremonies for the caciques. Maybe the cacique used it as a ceremony, or when somebody passes away, then maybe they use it for that as well, for burials. Because the cacique would be buried with the wife, whoever's the favorite wife, and the wife, of course, would be buried alive. The favorite wife. But the collar is very controversial because some collars actually were designed differently too. Sometimes they look like animals. They would look like a snake. That's another thing. It could probably be a representation of the umbilical cord, considering the umbilical cord represents.
And what's interesting that as far as the use, these things were not documented.
Oh no, they weren't documented at all.
Because it was certain things that related to their priestly life.
I think one of Columbus's diaries, I think it was in Cuba, he actually said that there was one that he actually did see a collar next to the cane, the really beautiful collar that was made out of heavy wood, beautiful carved collar. And he was actually talking about, but it was never recorded of why they used it. And as to my understanding, the Spanish weren't allowed to go to the secret ceremonies.
Right,
so
right.
they had to do it underground,
Right.
which was the reason why
Right.
some of the stuff wasn't recorded, because most of the ceremonies were underground. They weren't allowed to.
Right, right.
So that's another good point right there. That's the reasons why it was documented. Only the most trusted one.
Right.
I think that one of the first time I've ever seen a Spaniard ever infiltrating one of the ceremonies is a guy named Juan Gonzalez, who was in Puerto Rico, and he was actually a spy from Santa Mayor when Agobana II in Santa Mayor was going to go to war. So Santa Mayor used him as a spy because he actually spoke Taino very, very fluently. And he actually dressed himself with bija, which is the red color of the skin.
Right.
And he went feathers. And he went in the arretos, in the ceremonies, which are war dance. When they go to war, they do the arreto before they go to war. Just like every other, just the same way they do it here, like Native Americans here. So he actually found out that they were out to kill Santa Mayor as a spy. And then when he went back to tell Santa Mayor, the Indians already caught Juan Gonzalez. Right. And according to historical accounts, that Agobana actually, he prayed for Agobana to spare his life. So Agobana used him. So now the question is, who is Juan Gonzalez too? Was he a Spaniard or was he a Taino?
Right.
So nobody really knows who he is. It could be a myth too.
It could be a possibility that he was a convert.
He could have been a convert.
It could be possible.
Maybe he inherited a Spanish last name. Nobody really knows. But that was the first time I ever heard any Spaniard really one of the ceremonies like that.
Another thing to put out there when it comes to trying to interpret this, many documents are supposedly lost.
Oh yeah.
For example, Pane's account.
Oh, and some of Christopher Columbus's account, which was mostly written by Las Casas.
So in reflecting on all of that, in closing, when it comes to trying to have a grasp in the spirituality of our ancestors, conquest wasn't an easy thing for our ancestors to deal with. So the reason in bringing it up is just to have to establish a grounding in what these things represent. So what I would say is that, in my opinion, that these sacred objects deals with the world view and how they perceive the world.
Most definitely.
In general, so that's my opinion that I would give.
And I also think that the religiosity of them is it's very complex to fathom, because even the Spaniards didn't understand their religion.
Right.
And like I said before, people fear what they don't understand.
Right.
To them, when they fear their religion, they actually thought it was something bad.
Right.
What's interesting, in the Caribs, they still call their priest Sesi Semi. So nobody really knows what Semi means. Does Semi means God, or does it mean animal, or it means ruler? Nobody really knows. Because
I think when it comes to that, in regards to the language, these are things that are starting to come under the surface to get clarity, because the recent studies being done on the language in the Caribbean region is just starting to bloom. So I think as the studies advance, we will begin to learn more and get
almost
clarity.
Definitely. Almost definitely. There's always going to be new things too that's coming up all the time. Archaeologists always come with new theories and new assumptions and stuff. But yeah, I think the religiosity of the Tainos is very complex. Because the Semis, nobody really knows. What they were used for. What they do know is that when a cacique would die, they would use the head and bury of a bone or a headpiece and put it into the wood of the semi that they carved. Example is the cotton semi. The cotton semi had a skull in it. So because apparently they would go to the other life. I guess the head was very important to them. It's very interesting. In every ancient culture, the head was always important, because of the gland in the brain, the pineal gland, which is called the soul, the seat of the soul. So I'm not saying that they actually knew about the pineal gland or anything like that. I'm not trying to compare them to Egyptian or anything like that, but it's just interesting that every ancient culture always have their head as the most important part of the body.
Right. I think, in my opinion, in regards when it comes to this realm, you know, like just like in any other discipline, you know, these are aspects that's open for discussion.
Yeah, most definitely.
But I think what's important is to in having these discussions is to keep a grounding.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes, and this is not attacking anyone, you know, statements would be made, and then from that statement, a clash of arguments is created.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
You know? So I think it's important to maintain a
Status
grounding.
quo.
Yeah, exactly.
Status quo.
You know, so that way we can use the what is discussed, you know, to reach a point.
Most definitely, yeah. I always see that a lot of people have arguments concerning the religiosity of the thing. This is very complex. Nobody really knows. You know, nobody really knows. Example is a good example of the Spaniards didn't know is that, remember I know you heard the stories when they would use the 3-point semi of the growth of yucca. You know, they would put in the dirt because apparently they would use it for yucca. Or also they would urinate in the dirt to the growth of the vegetables. So there is a story that they took one of the saints from the Spaniards and put it in the ground and they urinated on it.
Right.
And the Spaniards took it as a defense or a disrespectful and killed one of the natives because he urinated on the saint. But as you can see, they don't understand the religion of aspect. Right. So it was they feared. They was like, wait a minute, what is he doing? You know, they think it was very eccentric to them. You know, and odd that he's peeing on one of their saints. You know, but that's a good example that the religion aspect of the Tainos is where nobody really understands it. It's so hard. You know, it's still being researched and still looking into right to this day.
I agree.
Yeah. So it's very complex. I don't even understand. You know. It's a good build, you know what I mean? Like me and you're doing right now because we're talking about it, and at the same time when we're talking about it, we can probably have a good
I think
understanding
with that,
of it.
and especially in regards with the Taino Legacies project, I got to throw that in there too. You know, like we have to keep these things open for exploration because that's what it is. It's exploration. You know, we're becoming more conscious of these principles, themes, and philosophies regarding the way our ancestors live. You know, and as you know, making that attempt to reclaim our ancestry. You know, we have to keep that humble mentality.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
When it comes to this exploration.
Yep, exactly.
So I think that's the last comment that I want to throw in.
Most definitely, yeah. And I think there's another one coming up soon, right? There's another legacy thing coming up. I think next year.
There's supposed to be an exhibit that's supposed to be coming out. Yeah. So I think that's going to be very, very interesting when it does.
Yeah. That'd be very. I don't know if the same people are going to still be there.
Yeah. I'm not sure as well, but I think in regards to that, you know, and especially to the new ones coming out, as well as the old, when it comes to this, we have to keep an open mind. And I think that's what's the most important above any other thing, is to keep an open mind.
And I think that's what you're doing now. You're working on the religious aspect of the Tainos now, right? That's what you're doing now. Right?
You know, we have a PowerPoint, but more information is going to be put out on that soon.
Yeah, so it's good. Yeah. But right now it's still being worked on too, you know, because I'm trying to deal with the language, a little bit of it, and a little bit of the religious aspect, but you have more of a good handle of it, which is pretty good because you're almost done with your PowerPoint, you know, your presentation, and it's not even done yet, no way done, because it's still new things coming up, you know what I mean? But it's interesting. You know? But I think that when we're done, I think we're gonna have a good powerhouse and a stronghold of the religion aspect.
Right.
And also with the language, and maybe show this one day to people. Maybe at the Legacy project. You never know. You know what I mean? So it's a good build, and it also lets people know out there that it gives them a good insight and idea of the religion of the Tainos.
I think we are developing a good symposium, you know, but it's like what I've been discussing before. You know, we have to maintain in developing a thorough timeline.
That's true.
You know, because that's where a lot of people are missing in regards to this. You know, a lot of people are coming from different points, and the people that are just coming up into this, they get lost very quickly.
You're right.
Because there is no timeline to trace themselves back.
You're right.
You know, like we need that timeline to establish that bridge.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. You're right. You're right. You're right. But you see all these in these Taino groups, you know, there's always some kind of confrontation regarding the religious aspect of Tainos. You know, of the what I was just telling you before with the urinating and the saints.
Yeah.
And,
But I think that's in regards of the cycle that's occurring. You know, so you know, it's like with that. You know, like you know, like, in itself, it's a journey. So you know, these things are going to be common.
oh yeah.
You know, but the real issue is getting the roots to the cause, and that's in re-establishing indigenity, which it is a complex process. You know, so I think that's something that we can develop, we can discuss further in the future.
Oh, most definitely.
Another video.
Another one is the story of Guanahona, you know, which is another good example. Which is, in my opinion, by reading it, I don't really understand it myself, you know. But a little bit of it I do understand is that when she took the Digo out and she cleaned him up. Remember that story when he had sores on his body and she was cleaning him? Me and George had the discussion and he made a good point. He says that it's well, people think she was just giving him a bath and curing the sores, but she was actually cleaning him because of incest, you know, because they were brother and sister, you know, and that's when the story of the woodpecker comes in, the colibri or the picaca, where the woodpecker comes in and they will peck on the trees to make women, to prevent them from doing incest, their sisters, you know. So it created women over that. I remember hearing this, one of the stories in one of the groups, and one of the persons were laughing at it because they don't understand it, you know, they don't understand. So it's just that they don't understand the religious and the mythology of the time.
The significance, because each of these accounts, they have these allegories touch on different levels or layers of areas.
Yeah,
you know. So, but it's like what you said. You know, it's important to have an. It's like when I first started doing the street scholars, and I had that first interview with you, and you were discussing about the foundation, the foundation of the building.
Oh yeah, the building.
So in regards to that, when it comes to this is very important to have.
Yeah.
Because without that foundation, you're easily going to get lost.
Most definitely.
So I think we can start from there.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Yeah. It's even with the language, it's pretty difficult. It's just like the religion. And I'm trying to do the language, and the language is difficult, very, very difficult. And because considering that the natives were a blend with different groups from the Caribbean, you know, different migrations, you know, and different loan words that they derive from.
But that can be said from a discussion we were having. You know, not only was the society of our ancestors was complex, but it was also multilingual.
Oh, multilingual, exactly. Yeah, it was multilingual. I think to this day we're multilingual.
Yes.
You know, or you could say trilingual. Because some of the words we use come from African, some of the words come from Spanish, some of the words come from native, you know. So yeah, we could say we are actually a multilingual group, or we live in a multilingual society in our countries, right? To this day. Right. So that's a good point where you just made right there, that the multilingual thing that we use. For example, when I was young, I had a Spanish class, and the lady would go, you know, Spaniards, they speak a different Spanish than we speak, you know. And she goes, oh, this is a fly, and I forgot what she said for the fly. And I said, well, that's someone mime. She goes, I don't know what mime, I never heard that word. And I was flabbergasted. I'm like, no, you don't know Spanish? I said, mime is in Spanish. She goes, we don't say that. So now I'm growing up now and understanding that's actually a Taino word. You know, so the Spaniards, you know, they speak a different language than us. They speak pure Spanish. We have a claudioscopic linguistic not foundation, but a mixture of different blend of words, African and Taino and European. You know? So that's what I mean by that's a good point you said about the multilingual.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the language and the religious aspect of it is very complex. I still don't understand the religion aspect of it. You know? I'm not really good with it, but with the language I can really deal with it. You know? That's my stronghold right now.
So in closing, what I would say is, in regards to these sacred objects, from a general perspective, not just me trying to give a broad conclusion in what they could represent, because it can be anything. It could be an assumption, you know. But what the opinion that I would like to give is that you know, these sacred objects represents the worldview of our ancestors.
Oh yeah.
That's the basic thing. You know, once you understand that, then the rest will come to you.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So I would think I would use that as a foundation.
Right.
You know, once you can see through that, then the other levels, you know, you will be able to understand it once you have that established.
In DR, they still do it. They still do the religious aspect of it. Yeah. They still do the water. They still pray to the yucca. They still pray to that stone. Like, I don't know if you heard of it, the Anacaona thing.
Yeah.
So when you go back there, it's like you're going back 500 years.
Right.
And the religion aspect
And the
of it is
interesting part is that they don't have the benefit as we do with the modern technology. So in that case, we have to take in consideration that they still have to use natural practices because they don't have the benefits that we have with modern technology.
Exactly.
So they still have to use that in order
agricultural.
In order to get by to the day-to-day living.
I agree. I agree. No, mama. Gracias.
Like you see with the lady here, you know, most people would think, oh, that she's Spanish. She's not Spanish.
No, she's not Spanish.
She's indigenous.
She's indigenous.
But what was put in the psychology in the mind is that, you know, that they believe to be a Latino, you know, when this is an example of what you were talking about, you know, the people being assimilated to the modern society.
I agree, yeah. But yeah, it's what you was just talking about before with Dominican Republic. What Ika said before, in DR they live a agricultural society, and PR they live a modern or an industrialized society. Right. So not to say in PR the culture and the religiosity they're going to live, but because PR became a part of it, more of a civilized, I would say, more of a civilized country like the United States.
Now, in my opinion, I would say that would be more to the occupation of the United States.
Yes. Yes.
But if you review, like, you know, at least 50 years ago, you know, there was more possibly there could be more indigenous practices still relevant on the island.
Oh yeah,
because if you look in general in the Caribbean islands, and this is just me discussing in general, 100 years ago there were no government assistance programs.
Oh no.
As opposed to today and present.
Oh yeah.
So now you have to keep in mind this is not too long ago. Mm-hmm. So when you look at that, when you see today currently the reminiscences of these indigenous practices still being relevant, you know, you have to put in your mind, you know, was these practices or the people, as they try to say, extinct? You know, this something has to make you open your eyes to reconsider that paradigm.
Yep. It's like what like Leota Figueroa said, that the extermination is not the term, but more of an absorption. Not to say that those groups, like, yeah, absorbed us, but we absorbed them into us, you know, and so yeah, we never extinct, but we absorbed their culture and their what's another word for it? Their well-being and everything, and became more of a different breed of people. You know, not to say that we're not Taino, but we became a mixture. You know, a different breed of Taino. You know, we have the African and the European. You know, but we was absorbed into their I don't know the word right now. I'm like mind block right now, but into their new religion or new.
I think what I would say, in my opinion, with the interface of people, a new ideology was created from this inter-exchange of communities.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, so I think that's something that I would throw.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we discussed enough for tonight. So let's leave it from there.
Yeah.
Then we can follow up on another discussion.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely.